I would see people tear themselves apart to get a kilo of posho. Now that I've grown, I've understood that was an expression of poverty, because that's what poverty does to people. It robs them of the simple human essence of dignity. I didn't have words then, but one thing I knew was I didn't like that. But you come once or twice a year and you give out these things. Do you really think these people eat only when you come? He said, no, of course they eat. And I was like, right now I've gotten words for that. But my question then was, do you think we are solving a problem, or we are just contributing to the basic needs of people? In brief, to say, are we a want or are we a need? Like, what are we doing exactly? The guy told me at 13, Ronald yokuze tetujja kusobola genda. Translation was, Ronald, you've grown, we won't manage you, goodbye. So I was fired from my job at 13. That's on my CV. Passion. Do I even have a passion? I don't know whether I have a passion. To answer the thing of passion, back then I was driven by an anger. I still am, but right now my anger is informed. Yeah, it's a bit informed. So I think right now I'm more anchored in purpose. I've never been a person of passion. So in this community there are all these examples, and okay, so is this where these people are? So this is where I am, this is where they are. So when I look at my life in about 5 to 10 years, do I want to be like this person? And I was like, no. Okay, if no, then who do I want to be like? So back then we used to work, of course, hustling and helping dad out, selling snacks around town. So I would make sure every day I secure 500 shillings and I would go and pay at an internet cafe to get access to the world. Makes sense? So because to me it was my way of traveling outside the community. The difference between this child and this one is because this one has had access to an environment. And in this environment, there's access to information, access to different conversations, access to a different mind framing. Please play chess. Be so good on the board, because that's your only tool to fight and to show the world that you're meant of something. You're beyond your community, but you are something yourself. That when you present yourself and you're like, I'm a chess player, it doesn't matter where you are. When you sit across someone, it doesn't matter where they were. What matters is that point, that minute on the board. That's when you get to show the world what you're truly made of, which is good. But make sure that you're good at life chess, because it doesn't matter that you know all the dynamics, all the paraphrases, all the n% on the board and you're good, but you should make sure that the chess you know on the board translates to real life. So as you move, be as good a mover on the chessboard, but be good as a mover in real life. So, Derek, like you see, communities is an interesting thing. So as I was telling you, my community has partly or majorly contributed to the way the people perceive it. Because if I ask you today, when you hear Katwe, Namuongo, and Kawempa and Kayo, what comes to your mind?
What used to come to my mind by then, before I got to into the fields of social work and social entrepreneurship, would be slums, insecurity, probably dirtiness, and all that. It would be bad. Like, I would fear. And growing up, I would fear. I got to learn that it's not that way, because while growing up, I would pass through slums and it was normal. But before, I would fear. But due to the different friends that I made who are maybe living in those communities, that I was studying with, I got to learn that actually they have some. At a certain point, I even envied their life, because some of them had so much freedom that I did that.
So you see, no, like let's name it. Like currently, when people say Katwe, Chisenyi, and all the slum communities, or I prefer to call them underserved communities, because then it shapes the narrative better. You get to understand it. So what comes to mind right now is violence, because recently what has been trending is the different wars from different groups that are going on. Not so. So, but then you need to understand how this all maps out. So we are looking at a bunch of youths
Yeah.
that most of them grew up without fathers, with single mothers, or without parents.
Yeah.
And they were shaped by a community that was no longer a haven. Not so.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the community, and before we get there, let me shape an image for you. So it's 100%, not so.
Yes.
So what you get to see, it's the 1% that defines how the media perceives the community or articulates it.
Yes.
So and when you go, you're not in the community. So what do you see? You see what the media feeds you.
Yeah.
And that's the battles, the the nasty words and everything.
Yeah.
But remember, that's just the 1%.
Yeah.
But there is a 99% you don't see. Those are the women and men that wake up and go to the markets,
Yeah.
wake up and go do their small businesses, wake up and fry chapatis, fry cassava, mama nachi, like the different people that do those things to make sure that there's an ecosystem down there that supports them and their children.
Yeah.
Make sense? So the media never shows you that.
Mm.
So when you look at all that and then you're like, okay, so when you understand, then you got to understand that what I perceive of the community is what I call the 1% of the community. So then I want to ask you, so then why would you base on the 1% to define a community?
Yeah.
As people love to say that the one-sided story.
Yeah.
And the community never gets to show this thing. So that's why when you ask me like what comes to your mind when you think about this thing, it's because you've been taught, like you've been socially engineered
Yeah.
to understand the community from that perspective.
Yeah.
One would argue that it benefits certain people. I wouldn't want to get into that because I would rather we find solutions that pinpoint fingers.
Yeah.
Make sense? So that's the whole thing. So it's about looking at the different dynamics and then understand. So even like back to the Ghetto Duke, the Ghetto Duke name.
Yeah.
That's why I exist. And as people tend to say that you need to find your purpose early, I think that's my purpose. Because recently I talked about how I would go out.
Yeah.
And I said I would go out as the guy who made possibility accessible
Yeah.
to everyone, and I shaped narratives that created platforms that allowed people to become.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So right now I'm seated here, you've given me a platform to talk about my community, and I'm telling you that there is a 99% that you don't see.
Yes.
So instead of saying, so this is how I'm approaching it. So I'm like, okay, so if Derek sees the community a certain way, which is influenced by the 1%,
Yeah.
then Derek is not alone. Derek is a representation of millions of people that understand this. So the best way is not to say, Derek, this is not right. You're like, it's all wrong. It's uninformed point of view. I'm like, okay, so how do I package the 99%
Yeah.
to be perceived as part of the community so that Derek gets options? When Derek goes and is like, okay, so this is what I know, but this also exists, then Derek gets different options. And then when Derek weighs, if he is a really kind and understanding human, well grown, and then and is emotionally intelligent enough, he will then get to understand that, okay, so there's a point at which this 99%, if well nurtured, if the stories are told well, it can actually influence the world, because then this 99% helps you to understand that this community is way more than what I've come to know. It has geniuses, it has intelligence, it has people that really wake up and work hard. So then you get to perceive the community differently. Because when you perceive the community differently, then you're speaking and understanding things from a well-informed point of view. That's my case. But also, sorry to cut you short, even the 1% itself, we're still talking about it. These are people that have grown up without mentors and examples. So that means that, and some of them I grew up with them. We get to talk, and we used to talk before I transitioned from the community to stay outside, because that was also a different dynamic. when you get to talk, you get to understand that this person is in this position because of certain circumstances and factors. So it's not a choice. It's a push factor that pushes them to get into that setting. And when you understand that, then you get to understand that all this is driven by survival. Makes sense? So then when you want to address this thing, you're like, okay, so how do we then create options that make these people choose, so that when someone is into that, they're in that for their own choice, but not because there are no options. Because then when you understand the problem from that angle, then it's easier to make a judgment that represents a whole community of people. Yeah.
You've talked about mentorship. How important is mentorship, and how important has mentorship been in your life?
Mentorship is a very, very crucial thing, man. It's really crucial. And I understand it differently. I've grown to understand differently. But I've been mentored mostly from afar, because I think I began my personal development journey in 2017. Yeah. And the people that I used to look up to were, of course, Jay Shetty, Steve Jobs, and different people around that setting. So mostly I was mentored from afar. And I need you to put keen emphasis on from afar. So why would a child born in Chisenyi go to seek out a person from the far west to mentor them? So that speaks volumes. That means in a community where I was born, I got to see it. I wouldn't say, I don't know how it came about, but I would say I've always been a curious and observant person, even as a kid. That means I made time, but I think it was by divine guidance that I got to see that, okay, so in this community there are all these examples, and okay, so is this where these people are? So this is where I am, this is where they are. So when I look at my life in about 5 to 10 years, do I want to be like this person? And I was like, no. Okay, if no, then who do I want to be like? So back then we used to work, of course, hustling and helping dad out, selling snacks around town. So I would make sure every day I secure 500 shillings, and I would go and pay at an internet cafe to get access to the world. Make sense? So because to me it was my way of traveling outside the community, and that speaks to mentorship. So being mentored from afar, as a child, as you know, when they ask you what do you want to be, I always wanted to be a pilot, and I didn't know why exactly. But recently someone asked me, and I think it was about that I've always knew, even if I didn't know the exact words, but I've always knew that I was in my community, but I was not for the community. No, like I was for the community because it's the one I serve now, but I was never going to be the image of the community as it is or as it was back then. Yeah, that's why even when you see my work, there's consistency, at least for the 5, 7, 8 years. Like I'm all about narrative shaping. That's what I'm about. So to answer your question about mentorship is crucial, and it has shaped the person I am today, because I've been mentored from even my primary school, from my primary teachers to the secondary school, to now being into the world of work, the different people that hold your hand. And sometimes, and I think it's because they see the potential, but because they've walked that journey, they see the person, and then they see the gap between where the person is and who they can become, and they hold your hand. Of course, you be stubborn, but they're kind enough to stay. So those kind of mentorship is a crucial thing, and it also anchors the work we do with a Galuli Foundation within the Katwe community. So because it's just education, the pillars, it's mentorship. Also, it's about excursions. So mentorship is a great pillar within the work we do, because we understand, this is my personal belief, if you want to take someone from point A to point B, it matters that you take them to point B so they have an experience of it. Like, it doesn't matter whether they stay at point B, even if they get to experience point B for just a few minutes and then go back to point A, their mind can never be the same, because then they've been exposed to a different world. So that's what mentorship does, and that's what we do. So we get children, as you know how mentorship, where you're introduced to a certain person, you're introduced to a different kind of viewpoint, perspective, and environment. Then we're like, choose. This is where you are.
This is what,
This is what is possible. This is what it's going to cost.
yeah.
So make a choice. That's what we do.
While mentioning that, my brain was triggered to three things: piloting, environment, and then a post you made about dreams and abstraction. Talk to us about piloting, because when you mentioned piloting, a lot came to my head. It's like sometimes we are pilots of our own journey, because the pilot is the one who flies the plane. So I love that bit of piloting that you gave, and then the bit of environment. You mentioned something about dreams and abstractions, and how you can get someone to understand, to see a community that is different from the normal environment, and that will change their mindset. Within your journey, have you experienced real life or real facts that have, besides you, that have really moved people from that phase of just identifying with a new environment, and it's changed their entire mindset in your work?
Oh, that's a good one. So I'll give you an example of the children we work with. So right now I don't do direct coaching.
Yeah.
We have coaches we work with within the team that coach chess, introduce chess to children. But when I used to do that, I used to also do private coaching.
Yeah.
And of course I used to go to these houses to meet these people,
Yeah.
experience them. And something struck in my mind. You remember that point A, point B thing, and take a person to point B? So I used to sacrifice the money I used to make, and I used to get at least 1 or 2 children from the community that were serving, and and jump on a border with them from Katwe to Namgongo. And the reason was simple. Because when children grow up and they think that the world around them is the whole world itself, then that's a problem. So to me, I was trying to take them into this new world, for them to get to experience a different kind of people, different kind of environment, to get because you know where we grow up.
Yeah.
This is the room. So you're into this room. This is the living room. This is the bedroom. That's if you have 2 rooms.
Yeah.
But you can have 1 room that has a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and everything. So that was the kind of thing we grew up from. But even me, like the gift of chess giving me that opportunity to travel and meet these people, whereby you look at a room and a child, and like a 9-year-old, 9-year-old tells you, "This is my room." You're like, really? This is bigger than the room we grew up in. Like, honestly, so this is your room as a 9-year-old. And I'm like, I need to go and get Elijah. I need to go and get Nakato. Yeah, I need to go and get Shifra to come and experience this, because they're in the same bracket, age bracket with these children.
Yeah.
So that means like there's something that can be shaped around that. Yeah, I'll give you also another example, be still within the chess thing. So one time, I'm with Elijah and Nicholas. We go to Namgongo, we sit, and on our way to Namgongo, before we branched off, there was a gentleman who sold fruits. So I buy watermelon. I also buy pineapple, and then we go. So we reach there, and then it was not yet time for the chess session. So we sit with this young boy. He goes to Vine International School, and Elijah goes to a certain school within the community, which is a very big pillar. It's called Full Gospel. It's interesting. So we sit, and I didn't know, but I sat a bit far from them and allowed them to have a conversation. But you could see that where Nicholas was and where this boy was, there was a difference.
Yes.
You could see Nicholas's demeanor change. He was shrinking. You know, with these boys come up and they're like, "Hey, this is my name. I'm Shafiq, I'm Ashraf."
Yeah.
And then you see Nicholas couldn't even raise his hand to go and shake this boy's hand. And my mind was like, okay. And a couple of friends of mine that do the same work have experienced this thing. But that was okay. But the thing that's really struck me was that as both these kids were eating watermelon, Nicholas's point of view was, this is a watermelon. We see it every day in market. We eat and then we throw these things away. And when this child from the Namgongo home ate the watermelon, this is what they said. They said, A watermelon has these many seeds and it's just a slice. I need to start a watermelon farm.
Wow.
This is a 13-year-old talking to a 10-year-old
Yeah.
from different communities, from different perspectives. This one has said they interact with the same fruit every day and they throw away. This one has interacted with a fruit, maybe they interact with it, let's say, once a quarter. And in this moment, we are sat down, Katwe and Namugongo, they're in the same place, but different environment of Namugongo. And the child from Namugongo has said, a watermelon seed, a watermelon, let's say, plant or fruit has these many seeds, and it's one slice, not a whole fruit, it's a slice of a fruit. I need to start a watermelon farm.
Wow.
That kind of thinking from a 13-year-old speaks a lot. That thing has never left my mind to date. And it shapes the way I do things because I got to understand, like in that moment, something clicked in my mind. I was like, the difference between this child and this one is because this one has had access to an environment. And in this environment, there's access to information, access to different conversations, access to a different mind framing. And then you get to tell me that Nicholas and this child, they get to live in the same world. But you see the world, the same world, but different worlds. So these two kids, that situation, man. So that's what, that when you talk about mentorship, that was my point. So
You
and
mentioned chess.
yeah.
Ronald,
Yes.
how has chess influenced your life and the lives of the children you teach?
Wow. Chess has actually been a great factor in my life because it has changed the way I perceive life. But also, I know this is a controversial take around chess.
Yeah.
I entered the chess scene, I think, in 2022
Yeah.
in Uganda. Like, quote me well, I had watched the movie The Queen of Katwe
Yeah.
way before, but I saw it was a good movie. I still watch it today and I get chills and goosebumps because that's how powerful a story it is. But ever since I entered the Ugandan chess scene, I've noticed something. Imagine that was shot in 2007, 2011.
Yeah.
Ever since then, we have never gotten a grand chess experience in the Ugandan and African chess scene as that. What does that tell you? How I understand is that, and I always tell this to my students, like realizing, having that revelation ever since I entered the Ugandan chess scene, we have very good players, and I think Uganda is the best in East Africa.
Yeah.
The best chess player in East Africa currently is from Uganda. We get children, we nurture them from the communities, they play really good chess.
Yeah.
They get to a certain level, they even represent Uganda, the African continent, and the international continent, because I have children that are around 9, 10, 11 that have played on around, I would say, 3-4 continents in over 14 countries,
Yes.
which is good. But also that speaks to something else. Let's first put it on a side. But I've watched players that grew up playing chess and they've played really good chess from the communities we serve,
Yeah.
and they've gotten to a certain level and they hit their peak. And when you look at them, there's no translation. There are no results of being a good chess player in their life. So imagine you showing up, going to a community and telling them,
Yeah.
chess can change your life.
Yes.
And you show them the movie of Queen of Katwe. I'll give you a story of Benjamin. In 2023, in March,
Yeah.
we hit the streets of Chisenyi, near Chisenyi bus terminal,
Yeah.
and I was determined to introduce the gift of chess to the children that find the streets of Kampala home, what people call street children.
Yes.
And trust me, if you've worked with communities, you understand that approach matters.
Yes. Yeah.
When you get it wrong, you get it really wrong. So we approach these children, and because the buy-in, of course, that has been shaped by the world is that you buy in with food. And I didn't want to do that because I personally, I don't want to do charity. Make sense?
Yeah.
Meet these children, and you can see you could see, I even have vivid images of them in my mind.
Yeah.
You could see that these are children that the world has robbed of the basic human need of innocence. Not out of choice,
Yes.
but out of circumstances. Because, of course, if you didn't grow up in the community, you'd fear them.
Yeah.
But to me, I was more interested in understanding the dynamics behind the person than the fear. So that means I had to remove myself from the image and go in. So we go in, we start. The thing that really struck me was when we went into the lives of these children, and then I went home, got my TV, got a flash card, went on at the movie library, you know them in Uganda, and then got the movie The Queen of Katwe. And I went and I told these children, on this day, I worked with the chairman and then we mobilized, and I told them on this day at 2 p.m. we're going to show you a movie. Please come and be around.
Yeah.
The children that people consider arrogant, like shabby, anything bad they associate them with, they got there 20 minutes before time. 20 of them. And they were like, Uncle, Tuliwan. Imagine a person who doesn't even own a watch to have the skill of keeping time. I was like, this is interesting. Because I grew up around them, but we didn't have that much conversation. This was a great revelation. I was like, interesting. So it gets to 3 on the dot. We start the movie. We watch it. Like our children love to have fun and start. But there was this boy, he was called Benjamin. He never spoke. Just kept time, showed up, kept quiet, and delivered. He kept quiet and watched. So after the movie, we're having a conversation. Of course, we bought some snacks and stuff. We're having a conversation in a hall, chatting. Yeah, of course, throwing banter around. Benjamin sat and asked me, he said, do you mean to say that when we play chess, our lives will change as the lives we watch in the TV or in the movie? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
So let me even put it in Luganda. He said, Chogamba bwe tuzanya chess, obulambu bwaffe bujja kukyuka ng'obwana. And I said, yes. He said, tutandike.
There and there.
He said, let's start. And I was like, who is this child? And to date, Benjamin still plays chess. He's a chess captain at his school. We met him when he was in P7. He had no hopes of going to school. Right now he's in Form 3. So imagine. Just imagine that. So people say in chess, of course, generally, general knowledge, in chess, a pawn becomes a queen at a certain point. So we had to teach those children from March to April. We had a whole month experience to where I even had to move from home to go and rent a small place in Chisenyi so that we could maintain that. That's a whole story for another day. But that moment alone, that experience in Chisenyi, taught me that pawns do become kings because those guys defied societal limitations. Those boys defied it. So that's why I even defy the rule of chess to date. Pawns can become kings. It just takes someone who cares enough to pay attention, who cares enough to really nurture, someone who cares enough to build a platform through which that pawn can become and get to self-express. And that's why we do what we do right now. So that was really good. So understanding that dynamic, and also to piggyback on the point that I was making of these people that hit the peak and there's no direct translation. So understanding that really taught me one thing, and that it has informed what I tell my students. I tell them every time, the children, please play chess. Be so good on the board because that's your only tool to fight and to show the world that you're meant of something. You're beyond your community, but you are something yourself. That when you present yourself and you're like, I'm a chess player, It doesn't matter where you are. When you sit across someone, it doesn't matter where they were. What matters is that point, that minute on the board. That's when you get to show the world what you're truly made of,
Yes.
which is good. But make sure that you're good at life chess. Because it doesn't matter that you know all the dynamics, all the paraflexes, all the n% on the board and you're good. But you should make sure that the chess you know on the board translates to real life.
Yes.
So as you be as good a mover on the chessboard, but be good as a mover in real life.
Yeah.
Because in there, I'm trying to tell them, chess alone is good, but chess is just an entry point. It's not the whole picture. It takes a lot more than chess. So that man, like these experiences, chess transformed my life. But those experiences of the child getting children from Katwe to Namgongo, seeing Benjamin where he was, and he said, do you mean to say that when we play chess, our lives will get transformed as those of the children we watched in the movie? And I said, yes. And he said, let's start.
Wow.
I've learned way more in life than I've learned in seminars and lectures, man. Just from a child, just making two worlds meet of children, meeting a child who calls the streets of Kampala home and giving me that drive. Man, there's so much, brother. There's so much.
As we wind up, this is a deep one, but I would want to know, how did you discover your passion and make chess, to define chess as something that can change lives?
Passion. Do I even have a passion? I don't know whether I have a passion.
How did you start the chess journey? Where did it start from?
You said you're winding up. That's a whole hour.
That's
But I don't think it's a passion. To me, it has always been an anger.
an anger.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a simple story. Growing up, I started volunteering, I think, at around at the age of 6. And my job was to write names of people that attended things or programs and stuff. And the programs then were simple. Baker, reach out to Derek, Vivian, Fauzia, and all your friends and tell them, guys, I'm going to do a charity project. Please give me the clothes you don't wear anymore. Please give me soap, give me rice and stuff, and come to the community. And they used to come to the community maybe once or twice a year. And they give these things. And as a child, I would sit and watch how things happened. I would see people tear themselves apart to get a kilo of posho. Now that I've grown, I've understood that was an expression of poverty. Because that's what poverty does to people. It robs them of the simple human essence of dignity. I didn't have words then, but one thing I knew was I didn't like that. Whatever was going on, I didn't like. And I remember when I got to around 13, I sat down the person when they came and I told them, but you come once or twice a year and you give out these things. Do you really think these people eat only when you come? He said, no, of course they eat. And I was like, right now I've gotten words for that. But my question then was, do you think we are solving a problem or we are just contributing to the basic needs of people? In brief to say, are we a want or are we a need? Like, what are we doing exactly? The guy told me at 13, Ronald yokuze, tetujja kusobola genda. Translation was, Ronald, you've grown, we won't manage you, goodbye. So, I was fired from my job at 13. That's on my CV, right? Well, that's interesting. So, that informed my... If I have a passion, is one, I hate charity. That's the passion I have. But in all the works I do in community, with and for community, was informed by an anger of the picture I've given you, of the depiction of poverty from my people. Because I know who my people are. Boy, do I know who we are. We are smart, we are intelligent, we are skilled.
Yes.
we can get just a stone and turn it into 1,000 shillings.
Yes.
We know how to survive on a chikomando, but speak wisdoms that translate differently. We know how to get one single statement and translate it into differently. So we have a different perspective of the world. So, but when you look at that, then you're like, if you're this smart, how come these people translate more than you? So then that gap. So that means these people have had access to exposure,
Yeah.
access to information, access to opportunities
Yes. And
that are lacking. So that means if you're going to solve a problem, we need to solve a problem of access and opportunities and exposure, not a problem of charity, because that doesn't exist. So, to answer the thing of passion, back then I was driven by an anger. I still am, but right now my anger is informed. Yeah, it's a bit informed. So I think right now I'm more anchored in purpose. I've never been a person of passion. I'm anchored in purpose right now. And my purpose is to make sure that I am committed to making sure that at a granular level that the world gets to know that my community is way more than they've come to learn about it and know. Yeah? But also at a grand level is that Africa is way more than the definitions of the world. That's my so I have passion for storytelling, and that's where I'm at right now. That's the purpose I'm following, and I want to go out as that. That I'm the guy who made possibility accessible, who decentralized access, and made sure that narratives were good, because I deeply care about how Africa is perceived. Yeah, and that's going to start internally as we tell the stories that enable the world to catch up to the greatness we are.
I always have a culture of asking people 3 lessons, one in health, one in relationship, and one in wealth. But to you, I want to ask you one. What is the biggest lesson that you have ever had or learned that has influenced your entire lifespan?
I thought you were going to go into relationships. Hey, that was a different one. But what I've learned that has influenced, I don't know whether there's one, but one thing, as I told you right now, I'm anchored in purpose. Recently, a very good friend of mine held my hand and took me to a certain point of view. She told me, and she asked me a very good question. So you were a bit high up, and she told me, look. And I looked. Then she asked me, what do you see? And I was like, I see roads, I see cars, what. That's what I wanted to say. But I've grown to understand that when a certain greatness invites you to a certain point, be wary of the questions they ask. So I didn't answer, I kept quiet. And then they told me, that Ronald, that. See the details, notice them, but fight so hard not to be in the details, not to live in the details. So that is anchoring my purpose, is anchoring how I think, is anchoring how I approach everything I do, and it's anchoring where I'm going and what I'm pursuing in life generally, man. Like, it's perspective. Perspective, to answer your question, if in one word, it's perspective. And that I learned, I think, last year. Perspective. That's what's anchoring me right now.
Thank you so much, Ronald. 3 people would love to see on this podcast on your fingertips.
Wow. Speeding a nyingi, my reader. 3 people. The ones that you've not had yet, right? First and foremost, I'm going to answer it in 3 formats. The past, the present, the future. the person I would think I would love to see on here is Lee Kuan Yew, the Prime Minister of Singapore, the late. Yeah, Minister Mentor. That's in the past. The present, the person I would really love to sit and listen to, that would be Vusi Tembekwayo. Let's call it. This is where the podcast is going. Let's believe.
Yeah.
Then, in the future, I would love to see you sit down with a child who carries a certain wisdom that enables them to experience the past, but also be fluent enough with the future we're going to experience. So I would love for, it's not even that, I would love for you to interview a person who is able to sit in two worlds and be able to translate.
It's a deep one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ronald. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for your
My
time.
guy, thank you, sir.
And I've really learned a lot through this conversation. It's been an amazing experience. We definitely need an episode 2.
Thank you for having me, sir. Episode 2, talk to my manager. Thank you, guys.